Now 7:30, I'd like to welcome everyone and open November 18th, 2025 to the Littleton Conservation Commission meeting remotely on Zoom. So welcome. Let's see, what we're going to do is start with approving the minutes from November 4th, which have been submitted. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes from November 4th, 2025?
Just have a couple of very minor things under the Long Lake Park hazard trees near Harwood Ave parking discussion. In the sentence, let's see, actually the first sentence in that it says the Boston Metro West Bible Church approach Mr. Pearson. It should just be approached Mr. Pearson. And then within that same sentence, it says to remove 4 trees located on Long Lake Conservation property, just Long Lake Park Conservation property. And that was it.
Okay, super. Does anybody else have any
I had a couple
comments?
I said I submitted a couple that's similar earlier. I think one of those was one of the ones Andrew mentioned, but nothing of much substance. So.
Okay, great. Going forward, does anyone want to make a motion to approve as amended?
I'll move that we approve the Littleton Conservation Commission minutes of November 4th, 2025 as amended.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Fantastic. Andrew?
Roll call vote. Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Michael.
I will abstain.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerbig, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
And myself, aye. So that is 6 in favor and 1 abstention.
Okay, great. Thank you. Moving to administrative discussions, does anyone have anything that they would like to add to the discussion list for this evening? Tim?
Nope, I do not.
Anybody else?
Is anyone aware of what's going on behind the storage on Newtown Road? Apparently there's some big tractors down there.
That's turtle habitat.
I know.
Are you talking about the one that came in for the ANRAD last year?
So didn't we approved an ANRAD there, didn't we?
We did right before Omega Way. That's gotten approval.
Oh, okay.
Yep. That's the storage. Okay.
All right. So,
Ed, if you want, Tim can re-forward that to you so you can see the final proposal, final agreement on that.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, great. Okay, let's go ahead down the list. First up is annual approval of invasive species treatment, Forge Pond invasive species control, Mass DEP 204-872. Tim?
Yep, so I'm promoting Dave Barr over now. If you guys remember back in the spring, Dave came in front of you guys to get an amended order for invasive species treatment over on Forge, and there was a special condition in that order that they need to come in front of the commission annually and get approval to do next year's treatment.
Hi.
Hi, Dave.
Good evening, Dave.
So we had planned to do a herbicide treatment last summer on Lake Mattawanakie Forge Pond, and for a number of reasons that we can go into if you want to, but we don't need to. We weren't able to do herbicide treatment last summer. But the item C17 says that we need to come back each year to get approval for the next year. We don't have anything to report about last year because there wasn't a treatment done. This year again, we wanted to do eco harvesting, but in order to do that, we need to have a DEP permit for dredging, which the Clean Lakes Committee has been working on for the last year and 15 months, I guess, maybe. A contractor has been hired to do the submission, and that's going to take longer than expected, and so there won't be a permit in place in time for next summer for eco harvesting. So we want to do herbicides.
So Tim, where are we with this now?
Just need a vote. I mean, if you guys have any questions, but Dave's looking for a vote if,
Okay.
to approve herbicide treatment for next year.
Commissioners, questions for Dave?
I also had a question about C16.
Is that part of this particular?
The amendments or the additions to the order of conditions for the herbicide and suction harvesting application last year added C16, C17, well, 13 through, it added 17 and 18 and it modified 16.
So if we're, and commissioners, I'll defer to you on this, if we're looking to an amend, that then we would probably post this as an open meeting.
I don't know that it's an amendment. It just says that we need to come back and get approval.
Yeah, it's just a special condition within that order that they need to come back every year. It's not necessarily issuing another amended order. It's just an approval.
I mean, Dave, I would say, Dave, if you have a question, go ahead and ask it. I will tell you, I don't recall conditions 16, 17, and 18 off the top of my head. So it may make sense to have you pose the question. We may not have an answer for you.
Okay.
Okay, so 17, we're just coming back because it says we have to come back each year to get approval for another herbicide treatment.
Right.
I'm not sure what would happen if we did a treatment next year and then we didn't do one in 26, but we wanted to do one in 27. I suppose we would come back after 25 or 26, report on it, and then the next time we actually wanted to do one, we'd come back and say, we'd like to do one now. I assume that's the right way to do it. C16 was added when we got approval to do physical plant removal. And at the time, we asked for a number of different kinds of physical plant removal. And the one that was, so all of them were formally approved, but the one that was explicitly approved to go ahead on a normal basis was eco harvesting. And then C16 was added at the time to say, if you want to do manual hand harvesting, suction harvesting, or cutting without collection, you have to come back and come with a plan and get approval for it. And then when we, last year, when we came to get approval for suction harvesting and herbicides, the sentence was added to this, amended to include implementation of herbicide use. So my two questions for this are, what does that mean actually for herbicide use? Does that mean that every time we want to do a herbicide treatment, we need to come back with a plan each time? And since this was put in for these physical harvesting methods that weren't explicitly approved, since suction harvesting was explicitly approved last summer, I would think that would have been taken out of there.
Dave, I think the easiest way, sorry, I'm not totally following because I don't have it in front of me. I think the easiest way to deal with this is if you could put your question in writing, send it to Tim and Lauren, we'll come up with an answer for you. I will tell you that in general, though, as far as herbicide applications, the answer is always going to be yes. Like
yes, we should come back each year.
Yes. The other one I need to, and that's just my 2 cents. Certainly, folks can disagree. The other one, I just need to look at the language and understand the question a little bit better, and not able to do it in real time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the
So
reason
going
I'm coming
forward,
back,
do we want to table this till the next meeting?
I think so. Like a written question that
Okay.
that we can answer, Dave, would be the best way to deal with this.
the reason I came right now with about the annual approval is that my understanding from our last meeting with Clean Lakes Committee and Select Board liaison was that the town is preparing to do, in the process of preparing their bidding for next year's herbicide treatments, and it seemed like it was only being done for Spectacle Pond, and we were saying it should also be done for Forge Pond also, and so I wanted to come back and confirm that we're approved to do herbicide treatments this summer on Forge Pond before they do their bidding process. Can we agree to that? And then I'll come back with the questions on C16.
No,
No.
just write your question and we'll respond to it, Dave. Dealing with these sort of one-offs in real time is very challenging. Just give us an email with what question you have, what you're referencing, and we'll get an answer to you.
Okay.
All right.
So
we've got to keep moving on. Okay, let's try and ratification and discussion of enforcement orders 172 Wickham Ave and parcel R13-3-15. You'll note that in your packet, you received 2 copies of enforcement orders. And Tim, I'm going to let you try and be concise to the commissioners of what we're looking at here.
Sure. So Lauren and I were alerted to some vegetation cut adjacent to the Smith property. After we went out, it turns out there was vegetation cut within the floodplain over at 172 Whitcomb Ave, and also that extended onto parcel R13-3-15, which is town property, and it's controlled by the water department.
Tim, sorry to interrupt. Do you have a parcel plan that you want to show? I think that while you're going through the narrative, it would be helpful for the commissioners to be able to visualize.
Certainly, yeah. Give me 1 second to pull it up here.
Because in essence, we have 2 separate parcels here, and that's why there's 2 separate enforcement orders.
I don't know why this isn't.
If one parcel is owned by the town, why would there be an enforcement order against the town?
It's not against the town, but it is. Town council recommended that we issue 2 separate enforcement orders because it goes on to 2 different properties, right? And so you guys can see this, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the extent of the clearing right here, and you can see this parcel right here is the town parcel that's controlled by the water department. This is Mr. Cottenham's property up here, 172 Whitcomb Ave. And this area here is the extent of the clearing that occurred. So town council directed us to issue 2 separate enforcement orders, both to Mr. Cottenham, but for the separate properties, right? They recommended that the water department make a decision whether or not they want to go about the restoration themselves and seek restitution afterwards, or if they would rather have this play out as a typical enforcement order where the violator would conduct the restoration and eventually, we would monitor it until the enforcement order is lifted. The water department went with that option. They didn't want to do the restoration themselves. They just asked if the commission can have a specific seed mix implemented on that parcel, and it's the New England Wetland Plants wet mix that they asked for. I think that about sums it up. So I don't know if we have photos in here. Yep. So we have some photos here. You can see the extent of the clearing. There was a fair amount of invasive species in this area. There were a handful of trees cut. I would say none of them were very mature trees that were cut, but there was a lot of brush that was cleared. And I think Mr. Cotton said a lot of it was autumn olive or Russian olive.
And then there are also some trees. I had an opportunity to go out with Tim and Lauren, and there are some trees that were felled that did not go the right way that are hung up in vegetation as well. So when we talk about clearing, some of this appeared to be more like a grass, a wetland. So there was a lot that was cut, but a lot of it was of lower stature. There was some invasives, but you will see it is significant in terms of the area that has been altered.
So
hey, Sarah, I'm confused. The town owned that parcel that Tim outlined, the water department, and the same landowner cut the water department land.
In essence, they cut on two properties.
But
Two separate parcels under different management.
But one of them was just only one was the water department, right? The other was his land.
correct. Yep. So Carl, this one right here is Mr. Cotton's property. And he thought that his property line went back here, and so that's why he did the vegetation clearing back here as well. And you could see, so the blue area here is the floodplain from FEMA's maps.
And Carl, just so you know, so he did fell some trees that are then, if you're looking at the 172 Wickham, that then fell into SVT trustee control land on the left there on your screen. So some of those have been cut and they're hung up in vegetation.
So why would the water department only ask for a wetland C next? I don't get it. I mean, we haven't even talked about restoration. Why would they? Why would they even say that? Why would they even say that? Doesn't make sense to me.
So Carl, me and Lauren met with the water department when this happened to run through what town council recommended, and they said they wanted. They said they didn't want to be involved in the restoration. And I asked them if there was anything specific that they would want to see here. And I kind of gave them a couple options, and that's what they went with. I would say I don't think they want it to just be limited to that. But that's something that they would like to see.
So I think we're getting ahead of ourselves because Tim is adding kind of some contextual of down the road. So what we are here tonight is that we have 2 enforcement orders in front of us. We need to ratify both of them and then start the next process of how we're going to deal with this. And at that point, I would encourage commissioners to come out, and that way the Cottonhams would come in as well, if that's the way you would like to go.
Can I add one thing to that, though, Sarah? As we get into sort of the late fall, I don't want to lose the opportunity to stabilize what we need to stabilize, understanding that maybe the full restoration might come in the spring.
So having seen the site, and Tim, I would ask you to chime in with this site is stable. There's nothing that I think there's no control measures that need to be put in place. Tim, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because nothing was uprooted. It was just cut.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So going forward, what I'd like to do in the essence of time is to ratify both of these, if that's where we're at. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that would be what I would ask for is just ratification. And then we also have Dale here, if he would like to speak to this during the discussion.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
So am I on stage at this point in the process, or?
So Dale, if you want to first off just introduce yourself to the commission, that would be great. And then if you want to just give us a little history here, we will be meeting with you obviously again in the future as well.
Sure. I mean, obviously, I'm not familiar with the process or this forum or anything else. So Dale Cottonham, here with my wife, Susan, we're the property owners at 172 Wickham Ave. I did meet with Tim when he came out to take a look at the property, and was very thankful for the time he spent with me. Did have an opportunity to look at the enforcement orders, and I did provide a recovery plan, which I believe Tim has provided to you as well. So if we have an opportunity to take a look at that, I'd be happy to discuss that with you. But as Tim indicated, my objective was to clear the property. We had a contractor in our neighborhood. They cleared the common stream, and I had another neighbor that cleared a common pond by the same contractor. So he was only there for the day. So I asked him to, if you could just clear my backyard as well. We've been in the property for 30 years. We have a beautiful backyard. And, our objective is to, maintain it, in a natural state and natural environment. As Tim indicated, the area was, largely overgrown by bittersweet and by Russian olives. Bittersweet was, hanging off the trees and killing off a number of them. The tree that you mentioned, Mrs. Seward was dead. It had been killed by bittersweet. Once again, just reinforcing, I have no plans to develop the land. I've never done anything to the property in the back other than, mowing it and self-maintaining. And my goal was just to be a good, good neighbor and, good property owner, and try and maintain and, get rid of some of the invasive plants. So, at this point, my objective is, obviously to work with you in the town and get this resolved, as quickly as possible, and consider myself to be a resident in good standing of Littleton, as I always have been. And, once again, just reinforcing, if I had known that my property went, or that, there was town-owned property at the water's edge, I wouldn't have done this at all. Or if I had known there were going to be these complications, I absolutely would never have done this. And obviously, I'll never do it again.
Okay.
There were no town markers there either. I just wanted to reinforce that as well. There were no markers, and I've been there for 30 years. And like I said, I just, I don't look at my property lines on a daily basis. And I just had always assumed over the last 30 years that it just went to the water, and, the water's edge moves back and forth by, I'm going to say 20, 30 feet, seasonally. In the spring, the water comes up at least 10 feet. And obviously in the late summer, the water recedes pretty significantly. So, where is that line? I didn't know. And, I wasn't really, I guess maybe I should have paid more attention to it. Obviously, I don't do this kind of thing all the time. But, once again, it was just a one-time effort. I did have knee surgery a year ago, and I let the backyard get even more overgrown. So when the contractor was in the neighborhood, I just tried to take advantage of that to clear it up and just get it back to a natural state. And I was planning on planting a lot of natural flowers in the back and just letting them grow up to the normal length they would, and just get it, once again, back to its natural state.
Okay.
So in the plan that I submitted, I did show some photos before clearing. I don't know if Tim can share those or not. They're not in the enforcement order, but if you take a look, I mean, there's, relatively speaking, there's still some very, very large trees on both sides of my property that were not damaged at all. And primarily what was done was just clearing of the, Russian olives that were like in the, 8-foot range, getting in the 10-foot range.
So we do have to keep going here. So I thank you, Mr. Conant, for your comments. Before we go on, you'd mentioned in terms of clearing a stream and a pond, was that a neighbor's property in terms of the vegetation?
Not my properties at all, no.
Okay.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
No, I just think they were
as part of this process, what we would do is, as I think you heard earlier, we have 2 enforcement orders. So what the commission will do, hopefully right now, is ratify both of them, which means they're both now active. And so what we would ask you to do is to come into the next meeting, which will be a posted hearing. This is just posted as an administrative discussion. And then at that point, you can go through the narrative of how you plan to go forward with mediating the land as well. But we recognize this was done possibly just in error. And so, commissioners, what are your thoughts on that?
I'll, if you're okay with it, sir, I'll just give you a motion.
Yep, so we need 2 separate motions. One is 3-1 and then 3-15.
Yep. I move that we ratify the enforcement order associated with parcel number R13-3-15.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Roll call vote. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
and myself, I. It is unanimous.
And
Okay,
then I'll also move that the Conservation Commission ratify the enforcement order on parcel R13-3-1.
No, 15.
Did
15 first.
Yeah, 3-15 is this one.
I thought we just did that
He
one.
said 315 first.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, I did
Yep,
315
so
first. I
now
did
we're on
my work.
3-1, sorry.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
Was that a second, Ed? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Roll call vote. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
and myself, I. It is unanimous.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Cotnam, so either Lauren or Tim will be back in touch with you about the next steps forward, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're getting a little behind here. It's 7:57. We're going to go ahead and hold off on administrative discussions and jump into 7:45, which is a continued public hearing notice of intent, 15 Park Drive, DEP-204-1029, construction of addition and attached covered porch. Who's here to speak with this?
Are we allowed to sign off now? This is the conference again.
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
You're good now.
Okay, thank you.
We have Mike here to speak to this. I'm promoting him right now.
Okay.
I know he did mention that he's not on his desktop, so I think he's just phoning in. If you guys remember, we were waiting on a DEP file number at the last meeting. And then me and Lauren have also gone out since the last meeting to confirm the wetland flags.
Okay, great. Welcome back.
Sorry, DEP did not have any comments.
Okay, great. So we were all here for that last hearing. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that the commission close the public hearing for 15 Park Drive, DEP file number 204-1029, and issue an order of conditions.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Ed,
Ed Foltz, aye.
Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye.
and myself, I. It is unanimous.
Okay, great. Best of luck.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, it's not quite 8 o'clock. We're going to jump back to administrative discussions. Next is Northbridge 2025 groundwater monitoring report, DEP 204-906. Tim?
Yep, I'm promoting Flora, and I think that might be it for this one.
Okay.
I think Larry
Great.
Feldman is with them as well.
Laura, when you're on with us, if you can introduce yourself, that would be great.
Tim, you can
Currently
promote
muted.
Lawrence. You can promote Dr. Feldman too. He's with GZA.
Okay.
I assume, right, Flora?
Yep. John's here
Yeah.
too.
John, too.
Yep.
Hi, John Packman and Flora Sue representing from GZA representing Northbridge. I don't know if our client contact from Northbridge is on the call. He had a conflict tonight. He said he would try to get in. I don't know if he's on there yet. That would be Tim Irvin.
I don't see him here, but if he's
So if he's not here,
I'll promote him over.
Right. He did authorize us to speak on their behalf tonight. So with that said, this is a continuing discussion about the groundwater monitoring results, talking about the update of our most recent results. But I see a lot of new faces here. By the way, Flora and I are in the same room. We're kind of sharing a laptop here. Neither of us could figure out how to use the rooms audio, video. With that said, I see some new faces. I see some familiar faces. What would you like us to present tonight? Would you like a background on how, where we are, the project, how we got here, or do you want us just to jump into the most recent data? What would be best for you?
I think to jump into the most recent data would be great.
Okay. So with that, Flora, why don't we just jump right into showing them the most recent data, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. I'm trying to see if I can I share screen?
Yes.
Okay. Where is that? I'm not seeing the option to share screen.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Tim, can you verify, or Amber?
Oh, right there, the yellow button in the center. It says share.
It should be right in the middle and the bottom. Yeah.
Right there in the center.
Oh, hi. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So there we go.
Great.
Okay. So then the data. So well, actually, let's very briefly. Just a quick reminder of where each of the wells are on this site. Yes, we'll be referring to them by well name, and so GZ groundwater generally flows in. It's kind of weird because north isn't exactly up, but it flows down gradient this way towards Beaver Brook, which is over here. And so we have kind of working from the most up gradient well down gradient. We have GZ4, which is right off Monarch Drive. It is our up gradient well. And then we have GZ3 off the corner of the building here. GZ2, which is kind of down gradient from this small parking lot. And then GZ1, which is down gradient of the larger parking lot. So here's the data that we have collected since we started the monitoring in June 2021. And this is for chloride, and we have it for each of the road salt constituents that we were monitoring. And so the yellow one up here is GZ4, that's our up gradient well. The blue one is GZ1, the most down gradient one. And then the gray is GZ3, the one that was off the corner of the building. GZ2, the one off the small parking lot, is orange. And we see very similar trends with the sodium, which makes sense if they were using sodium chloride as the de-icing product. Again, we have GZ4, then GZ1, and then 2 and 3 are pretty similar. We also were monitoring calcium in case they were using calcium chloride as a product. Here we see GZ1 in blue, and well, they're all pretty similar at that level, and hardness is related to calcium, so very similar trends for hardness as well. We also did some additional.
Before that,
sorry.
Let me just comment that it's important to note that our highest concentrations are in our up gradient well. That's a big takeaway here. Is that that yellow line is our up gradient well. So that's the groundwater quality coming onto the site, coming on from that well is actually down gradient of Interstate Highway 495 as well as Route 2. And we're also down gradient. If you think of it as Flora pointed out, our regional groundwater flow pattern is to the left and to the top, following Beaver Brook. So we're also down gradient of the Cloverleaf interchange from 495 to Route 2 as well. So there's a lot of salt being dropped onto those roads during the winter months. And so that's really key, that our upgrading groundwater quality is the worst that we see on site.
And so then we also did some additional checking of the historical concentrations that have been measured in some of the town wells nearby. So those, for example, around GZ1, there's DT5, which is a little bit down gradient in the wetland. There's DT3, which for some odd reason the label's not showing up, but it's right here. And then DT4, S, and D. So the concentrations that we could find from the town for those wells are plotted. And they had data from like about 2006 to 2019. And you can see that and each of the constituents are the same color. So in this case, blue is all chloride, orange, actually that got mixed up a little bit. But basically what we're seeing is that for wells that are in this similar area as our wells, I see it's backwards, that's why. For wells that are located, the town wells that are located in the same area as the monitoring wells that we've been monitoring on a quarterly basis, they have shown concentrations at least similar to, if not higher than what we're seeing. So what we're starting to wonder is if the baseline criteria that we set on this 1 year snapshot is accurately reflecting what has historically been seen at this property.
If I could just chime in, let's just go backwards a little bit here. So we've been monitoring this for a couple years now, and the criteria that we have for this site was established early on before the Amazon facility was constructed. And the criteria were based on monitoring for 1 year that was, selected, when the project was approved. And then comparing that baseline monitoring data to future data. And we compare it we have two criteria, one looking at seasonal variations, the other looking at total impacts of the project. So we look at, in the criteria as negotiated between Northbridge and the Conservation Commission, is, exceedances of 15%. Are one criteria looking at seasonal fluctuations, and the other one is 25% looking at total impacts. And what we saw, now that we've gone through our baseline year, we've got three more years behind us, is what we're seeing is that we are having actual testing results that are exceeding the baseline criteria. So we started saying, well, why is that? And I think the reason for that is that the baseline criteria is just what it is. It's only that one small snapshot of 1 year's data. And, in reality, environmental data is complicated. And it's, this kind of data is varies by season, varies by year. Not every year gets the same amount of snowfall at the same time. And we're seeing that in the data. So when we saw that, we were not meeting those baseline that was really representative of a very small snapshot in time, we then, as Flores pointed out, we looked at what are the data we have so we can assess what the groundwater quality looked like before they built the building, to see what our total impact was. And we've been in very good communication with the Littleton Water District. They are developing the back of the site for water supply, and they shared with us their reports. So we looked at their reports, and sure enough, it's typical. They've been monitoring for general chemistry parameters, including calcium and sodium and other parameters that we're monitoring for. So we then compared our data to their data, and sure enough, their data are greater than our data, and over the long term. And what that told us is that, over the long term, our impacts are consistent with what was already there before. And so separating out, the incremental, amount from the Amazon site versus what was already there is really challenging to do. And I'm not sure we can do that. So then you take the fact that our highest concentrations coming in are greater than what's downgrading to us, and then you look at comparison to the historical data. As Flora pointed out, we're starting to think that those baseline criteria aren't really all that appropriate for this site, given it's such a short duration criteria. So these plots, as Flora pointed out, show a comparison of the historical data on the left and the actual data with the dots on it, which is the stuff we've been monitoring, on the right. And this, the vertical scales are the same. So you can see where, like, this is GZ2, and our actual data are much lower than what we saw in the past. And if you go to, or if you could go to GZ1, let's just go through each one. Similar type of thing. GZ1 is down gradient, so it has some buffering from the effects of the wetland down there, and travel time impacts. But what we're seeing is that our recent data, fit right in with the ranges that were there before we built the building. And if we go back up to 3, or back down to 3, I should say, which is one of those wells that's sort of in the center part of the site, you see the biggest impact there, where our concentrations are, again, much lower than than what was there beforehand. And if we go to well number 4, which is that up gradient well, we go to well 4. We didn't plot 4. Did we plot 4?
Not with historical data, because
Okay,
there
that's
aren't
right.
town wells near it.
That's right. We didn't have any nearby wells to look at directly comparison. But a similar trend starts developing, and it becomes apparent that 4 is that upgrading well. Concentrations coming on site are higher than what's on down gradient. So we start thinking, I don't think we're ever going to meet those criteria, given that we're trying to bring in meet criteria that we were exceeding before we even built the building, that the groundwater was exceeding before we even built the building. So that's what the data shows us right now. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. What I think it shows is that we have background levels of salt that are there from decades and decades of salt application along those roadways, and along that cloverleaf. We know that they apply a lot of salt on interchanges because they're curved, and people tend to spin out on curved off ramps and on ramps. And also most of those interchanges have detention ponds built in with them, so they function as a reservoir for salt. So that's another source. So that's what the data is telling us right now, is that we're not likely to hit those somewhat narrow criteria established in that that 1 year baseline that was established at the beginning of the project.
Okay, what I'd like to do now is to go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to know, sir, if I could ask some questions about that data, since we're talking about the data.
Yep.
The first thing that I want to understand, John, is your groundwater flow directions. So, Flora, would you mind to flip to the map that you've got with the groundwater contours, or the inferred groundwater contours? The first thing I want to understand here is why we think all of the water is flowing, let's say, plan west, right to left. I think clearly GZ4 and GZ3 show some sort of down gradient pairing, although 30 feet of elevation change in that distance is weird. Something strange there. But then when we look at GZ1 and GZ2...
it has to do with topography.
Yeah.
Sure.
It has to do with topography. And that is that GZ4, GZ3 are on the edge of the wetland. And if you go out there, you're on a hill there, and it drops pretty steep.
Yeah,
so the groundwater, topography is a subdued version of the surface topography. So that's why you have a steeper gradient there. And then as you approach the wetland, the gradients just flatten right out because the wetland flattens right out. So that's why we can't contour in the wetland, because we don't have enough gradient there. And we're inferring that groundwater is taking a bend and going to the north or the top of the paper further down, simply because if you look on a regional level, Beaver Brook flows to the top of the page and goes under a culvert underneath the road. And it, again, looking at just general, hydrogeologic principles, groundwater flow is going to follow the valley of that Beaver Brook. So it's going to go to the north. So we don't have a sufficient resolution in our monitoring well network to demonstrate that or quantify that, I should say. But we, on first principles of groundwater flow is groundwater is flowing to the left, and then it's going to start moving to the north as it follows Beaver Brook.
So what you're telling me is 30 feet of elevation change in the groundwater elevation across 200 feet is just typical in your experience.
It is what's happening there, because that also corresponds to the upland area of the site. So there's sufficient topographic elevation to have that groundwater, to reflect that groundwater gradient.
Have we looked at engaged the other wells on site, DT1, 2, the town controlled wells? Are those still in place?
Some of them are.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that, Flora?
We have gauged them, but we don't have elevation survey for it, so it's hard to tie it in with our well network.
Yeah. But
they do show similar water levels as ours for the ones that are about the same elevation.
Yes, exactly. And again, it's because they're in the wetland there, and our gradients in wetlands are very, very subtle unless there is an outside or a sink of some sort. And the most common sink in this area would be a pumping well. So if the town of Littleton were to put in a pumping well, that would create some vertical gradients that you might see a greater gradient. But as of right now, they're not pumping any of the wells there, so there's nothing creating a gradient in that direction, in the downward direction or otherwise.
What I'm getting at here is that for okay, well, let me move on from that point then. I think before we go down to any path of talking about changing our understanding of baseline, we need a comprehensive understanding of the flow directions here. And I will tell you that I frankly just don't believe a 30-foot elevation gradient in the groundwater contour over less than 200 feet. Something seems weird there.
Those are surveyed, and at times, those are all surveyed, and we have high confidence in those. The thing is, we only have 4 wells over a large area, so you have to.
You have a lot more wells that you've gauged. You just need to send a survey crew out to tie them in.
Well, the other wells are in the wetlands, so we don't expect to have a large gradient there. There's no reason to believe you'd have a large gradient there, and that's why we pull those gradients back so that it coincides with the upland area of the site.
You're telling me from the 200 feet from
a large constant head.
You're telling me from GZ4
Think
to
of the wetland
GZ3?
as a large constant head.
Okay, if you could let Chase speak, and then we'll go ahead and address
Sure.
other questions. We do have to keep moving on.
You're telling me, John, that from GZ4 to GZ3, we have 30 feet of head. And then from GZ3
There's
to
a pretty
DT1.
significant hill.
I understand there's a hill. But then you're telling me from GZ3 to DT1, we essentially have no gradient, and we have a wetland there, but we don't have major breakout. That doesn't make a lot of sense. What I would like to do, if we're gonna go down this path of exploring the changes in baseline, I think we need to understand the comprehensive data that we have available to us in terms of groundwater contours. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is you referenced town data. When you looked at my understanding was you looked at chloride, other salt indicators in town data, right?
Correct.
Does the town have more modern data than what we have in this report?
I could ask them again to see if they have anything more recent,
When was the
but
last
that
time you
was
asked
what
them
they,
for data?
last fall.
And the most modern data they gave you for some wells was 2015? What I'm trying to understand is like
2019.
for some wells is the most modern I think is 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to understand why that data was generated. It was all part of evaluating the aquifer in that area as a potential water supply. Since what's commonly done is they'll look at it from a hydraulics point of view and do a pump test and see what the yield can be, safe yield can be. But they'll also look at the general water quality so they can assess, is it feasible to develop this from a water quality point of view, how much testing, how much treatment might be needed. So they'll do some general chemistry parameters as an initial screening for that. But they don't develop a long-term groundwater monitoring program for that. They'll monitor long enough so they can make some general decisions or form some opinions based on that, and then they'll stop.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if we're going to go down the path of changing our understanding of baseline, my expectation would be that you would get authorization to sample those wells so that we could understand what's going on more comprehensively than the 4 wells we have. 2 other points as we go down the path of trying to consider changes in baseline. The third would be I would want to see a statistical argument on the trending. I appreciate the graphs. I'd like to see the statistics that support those. And then the final point here is I appreciate that there are things like the cloverleaf, but some of the features that you referenced just don't exist. Like that particular cloverleaf right there, unless you can point out to, I don't see a catch basin there. I'd like to see you evaluate for us in the context of baseline, what are typical road salt concentrations in groundwater in proximity to roads? Because right now we're trying to figure out what's going on out here. And if we're going to change the baseline, and if your argument is going to be this is typical, you need to substantiate that argument. And I don't see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
not sure that we're suggesting we change the baseline.
So if we can, let's pause there.
Suggesting that we
do have to keep going on. So I'd like to ask other commissioners if they have any questions that they would like to be addressed for a future meeting. So we're obviously not going to resolve this evening. So I'd like to open it to other commissioners. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess maybe this was maybe a question for Tim. What is our overall? We've just talked a long time about potential changes and whatnot. What's the overall monitoring period? Isn't it almost over? And I guess if we're talking about extending it, that's so be it. But I don't see that.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily hear a request for change.
So certainly it can be extended.
It got extended, Kyle, because we exceeded the baseline criteria.
Right. Okay.
Yep. So we're still in that holding period. It can be extended if we wish. Anyone else have any other questions? So my suggestion would be this discussion is recorded. It's online. So Flora and others, I would encourage you to kind of go back, take notes, and we will have you discuss with Tim potentially how long it would take to be able to answer some of the questions that were put forth tonight. And then Tim can go over when our scheduled will accommodate your timeline as well. Tim, is that okay? Tim's still here?
Tim's muted.
No.
He's muted.
Sorry, I was muted. Yep, that sounds good to me, Sarah.
Okay, great. We certainly appreciate your information, your data tonight. We have a full hearing, so we're going to keep moving on.
Just get us. Don't misunderstand. We are not suggesting we change the baseline. I'm just suggesting we may never be able to hit it. Just based on the conditions we have out there.
And John, before we hang up, think about this though in the context of GZ4 and GZ3. If you really do have a 15% grade in your groundwater table, the water is going to be rocketing through that area. It doesn't make sense to me that we would have such a steep groundwater contour and still have salt observable there in the summer. One of two things is either happening. Either the area's got to be flushing so fast that you would see some seasonal variation in it, which we see some, but it doesn't flush out. 15% is a huge gradient. Or GZ4 is somehow not representative of what's going on. And we can talk about that more when come in and sort of answer some of these other things, but something feels wrong.
Okay. Right. So we're going to close the discussion. Thank you for joining us this evening. Now we're going to move on. It is 8:25 and we're going to open our 8 o'clock. Continued public meeting, request for determination of applicability, 34 Fletcher Lane, which is an installation of a septic system. I've promoted Matt over. Tim, who else?
It should just be Matt.
Okay.
I believe. Matt, if there's somebody else, please let me know and I'll promote them over as well.
There you go. Matt, if you can introduce yourself.
Good evening, Matt Morrow, Morrow Environmental Consulting, here on the continued request for determination for 34 Fletcher. First of all, I apologize. I did turn in some documentation that was requested at the last minute. I had a personal issue that actually kind of kept me from getting it in sooner.
When did you submit it, Matt?
The transect and the waiver request form I just submitted this evening. I did email them to Tim. So.
Okay, so as you know, we asked to have it Thursday before the Tuesday meeting. So if you want to go over that, and we'll see if we can discuss it. Thank you.
Yep, not a problem. If I can share my screen.
You should be able to.
Go ahead.
So this item I actually turned in a little over a week ago. I'd sent it into Tim. So this is the version that was requested with changes on it. The 2 sump pump lines are shown and labeled out here. The red maple tree that was on the property and the stone wall midway through the property yard in the back is shown here as well. There are notations for a trap rock outlet or trap rock in the outlet from the basement sump pump that comes out and was causing an area to start to gully a little bit close to the wetland. You can see from the area right here, based on so many site walks that other commissioners did, that the septic system itself is clearly in lawn area. There is no tree removal that is going to happen. From where the tank is to where the septic is, the only tree in the closest vicinity is here. This area right here has a kind of a brushy area that was there, but apparently had been cleaned out around the stone wall. It was mostly a invasive scrub growth that was there that was cut down so that, you could see the wall. The transect, I don't know if my tabs are going to go through, but tell me. Can you see the transect sheet?
Yep.
So essentially what we had, I was asked to do a transect around flags 7 and 17. So I did basically an arc like I normally do between 7, 7, 2, and 8. The area is currently in mild drought. What it basically showed was it showed the vegetational makeup I have here goes from the inner part of the wetland to the edge. So essentially you have the 50%, which is mostly made up. You have a herbaceous layer. There's no real overstory in this particular section. It's mostly a shrub layer that is mostly Rosa multiflora and some high bush blueberry that's being choked out within some of the rose bush. The upland section of this has a lot of Canada goldenrod. This is actually the wetland transect. The soils in this wetland transect showed to be about a 2-2 when you started getting down between, 7 and 16 inches. If you went to the upland transect was actually a 10YR 5-4, which was actually right around the area where I have flag 7-2. In all honesty, I could have taken 7-2 and moved it down a few feet towards the wetland. So it's a little on the conservative side. So it's basically showing that when I did flag the area, I tend to, as I usually try to, tie the flags a couple feet in front to give the wetland an advantage. The waiver request form that I filled out essentially talks about leaving the trap rock in place in the section here where the sump pump comes out, and that is essentially for preventing erosion from happening. So it would be the large 6-inch trap rock. It wouldn't be any little pea stone. That stuff would just wash out. The other part that is in the waiver request form is when I walked around with Sarah and Tim, we noticed a lot of old detritus that was on the ground, some old siding, pieces of wood, other assortments of trash from the prior owners. That will be picked up and removed by hand only. There won't be any equipment that would enter in there or anything really cut out other than maybe some rows if it gets in the way of picking it out. So that's basically what I recall. Sarah had asked to have these walls from the abutting property added onto the plan for lot reference. This is the abutting lot here. This is an internal stone wall here that we saw on site. So that's basically it, guys.
Okay, I just had a couple quick questions. The two lines that you refer to as sump pumps, are they both sump pumps or isn't one coming off the roof?
Let's see. 14 is a roof drain, so you can see this one, which is labeled 14. Shown here. That is actually correct. Labeled as a roof drain. We're going to add some trap rock to the end of that. Same thing on 15. We're going to add some trap rock here. 15 is the one that's really, cutting a little gully in there. And I think if we just add the 6-inch trap rock with a little trap rock pad down on the bottom to dissipate the energy, that'll stop that from.
Okay. That was my next question, Matt. What you commented, you said you were going to leave the trap rock, but in fact, you're adding the trap rock to that gully, which is almost 2 feet deep.
Correct.
Okay. Tim, you don't happen to have any photos of that, do you?
I don't believe I do.
Okay. Okay. It is significant. That's why I want the commissioners to note.
I believe Kyle saw it as well when we went out there.
Kyle, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I definitely made that comment to Tim that, well, at the time, I didn't realize you guys went back out. So at the time, we didn't know where those lines were coming from. But we had made that comment that they should be investigated and stabilized. One of those did have stone on it. One of them was stable. So it must be 14 maybe. At least when I saw it, one of them was stable with a rock and one was not stable at all.
That would be 15.
Okay. So obviously this is going to be under a monitoring period anyway, so we'd like to watch that to see if it does flush considerably. Those were just the two questions that I had. Commissioners, anyone have any other questions or comments?
I mean, I guess just to go back to the actual proposed work, I went out there with Tim and we saw, I guess, no issues at all until we started walking towards wetland. More of the project itself, I don't think is going to cause any sort of issues on the property or the wetland. I think like Matt said, the tree line that's pictured here is very misleading. It's not overgrowth like that, like it shows. So I have no concerns with the actual work itself other than protecting runoff from those two lines.
Matt, can you show us where the construction access will be?
Construction access is going to go around the side of the garage.
Okay. The only reason I ask is if we need to pull the erosion control, which is where your cursor is now, further around.
Well, I mean, we can add a line here because I'm sure they're going to have to go around a little bit just to get at this tank. So
Right.
they may cut around here to get at the tank and may go around to get at the leach field and the lines here, which is the more intensive part of the construction. So I mean, we can take line 9 and extend it out to the corner here,
Okay, approximately to the stone wall.
approximately to the stone wall.
Okay. And is it noted in your narrative that the debris is going to be removed by hand? I know you said that verbally, but is that in the narrative?
It was actually, I put it in the waiver request form that the debris was going to be removed by hand because the debris would be within your no-touch zone.
Okay.
And when we had talked about the waiver request form, you had asked me to note the hand debris removal and the trap rock in the waiver request form.
Okay.
So in the waiver request form, I put that. Yes.
Well, obviously we haven't read it because we just got it. So
Yeah, I apologize for that.
Tim, have you had a chance to review it?
I
You know,
haven't. No.
Okay.
I can see if I could pull it up here if you'd
I'm
like.
up to the commissioners, but I'm always leery to approve things that we haven't had a chance to read.
Given that this is reasonably benign, if we could just take a look at it, I just want to make sure there's not particularly problematic language, and I'm not opposed to moving forward unless I trip over something I don't like.
Great. Can someone put it back up on the screen?
I do have it here. If you just give me a second, I'll show it.
You said you had photos also?
Matt, do you have any photos?
I'm actually looking right now to see if I have something.
So while Tim is working on the waiver.
See if I can zoom out here. Give me a second.
And just to be clear, this outfall is already the sum train outfall that we're talking about here is the one that already exists, right?
Yep, exactly.
So you're just really improving it.
I'm okay with this as written.
Okay.
I'm just looking for some pictures here.
Okay. Well, I've been out on site. Kyle's been out on site. Tim. Commissioners, what's your pleasure? What would you like to do?
And as much as nobody seems to have any real issues, I think we should talk about approval.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion? This is a request for determination of applicability.
I move that we approve the request for determination of applicability for 34 Fletcher Lane installation of a septic system.
-3 determination.
Correct.
Sure. I don't know what that means. But okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
All right. Roll call vote. Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Carl. Oh, Carl, you're on mute.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle.
Matsu, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz, aye.
Myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you. And then Matt, if you can just let the office know timeline when they're going to start and erosion controls are in.
I will definitely do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Have a good night.
Guys, thank you very much. And again, I appreciate the leeway.
Yep.
Seriously, thank you.
Okay. It's 8:40. We'd like to go ahead and open the 8:15 continued public hearing discussion of current and future land use for town-owned parcel U12-14-0. I think that's a 0. All right, Chase, I know you were taking the lead on this a little bit. First off, I'd like to thank everyone for submitting comments to Tim, which have been posted on the town website as well. So thank you for those of you that are joining us that have done so.
Yeah, they were very thoughtful comments and helped inform a little bit of what we're going to talk about tonight. What I would propose to the commission is I've got some alternatives to talk through. When we had last talked about this, I had hoped to have these out in time for everyone to sort of see them. We could ruminate on them given that I didn't meet that, but we do have alternatives to talk about tonight. What I would propose is that we commit to not making a decision, but we do work through narrowing down some of these alternatives, because I think what you'll see as I work through some of these alternatives is there are lots of threads to be pulled on with each one, and part of what I need to know is which alternatives do we need to go deeper on and which ones are not sort of appetizing to the commission in general. So what I would like to do, how I would like to structure this is I'd like to talk through the alternatives that I've sort of put together. Then, Sarah, if it's okay with you, we can open it up for public comment, but my hope is that everyone has read the comments that people thoughtfully put together and are posted on the website. To the extent that we do have public comment, we're going to hold people to 3 minutes, one set of comments, essentially the same rules that we use for town meeting. We also have town council. Tom Harrington is here tonight. Tom, we may have some questions for you as we sort of talk through these. Sarah, is that okay? Sound okay with you if I talk through the alternative?
That sounds great. And you just let me know at what point, for those of you that are in attendance, the best way to move forward is just simply raise your hand, which is a button that you'll find optional for you. So please go ahead, Chase.
Okay, so let's blow that up. So this is a document that will be posted to the website. You don't need to get lost in all of the words here. The way I've structured this is we essentially have alternatives that we need to think about in the context of the docks. We have alternatives that we need to think of in the context of sort of the upland boats and storage. And then we have alternatives that we need to think about in the context of sort of the landscaping. What are we doing in general with the use of the land? And the docks and the little footnotes down here, what they say is, first of all, the alternatives for the docks and the alternatives for the upland sort of boat storage are largely independent of one another. So don't read alternative 1 here, and then you'll see alternative 1 for boats and upland storage and alternative 1 for landscaping. It's not one comprehensive alternative. It's alternative 1 for docks, alternative 1 for boats, alternative 1 for landscaping. We might choose 3, 2, and 3 or something like that. The other qualifier here is that these alternatives are, we're just talking right now about parcel U1214-0. That's a conservation controlled parcel. We are aware of the fact that there are other unpermitted activities along the Long Lake shoreline that are not part of that parcel. This discussion may inform those, but we're right now focusing on those. So here's how it breaks down. Based on the feedback that I got from the commission a few weeks ago, I really see 4 alternatives in the context of docks. Everything from remove all of the docks to allow the structurally sound docks to remove and remove all other in-water structures. So that's sort of our bookend. That's narrowed down from what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where it could be laissez-faire. We could just sort of not do anything. That didn't seem appetizing to people. It also did not seem appetizing to the commission to ignore sort of the falling apart ones. So let's say the most permissive, that this is always structured. So alternative 1 is the sort of the most constrained. Alternative 4 is the most permissive. Alternative 4 here, the most permissive, is essentially leave the structurally sound docks in place, remove all the other structures. And then the way I've structured this is we have a lot of follow-up questions that we need to answer. I don't think all of those follow-up questions for these are, let's say, threshold questions. I think only some of them are, they all have headaches associated with them in some way. Like, would we need to permit the removals? Maybe, but I figure we could figure that stuff out. These are what I think are the threshold issues around the dock alternatives. And really the middle ones are the ones that are probably the most challenging in some ways, because alternative 2 here is remove all of the docks in water and the town replaces that with a dock. Some of the public comment we got, a lot of, not all of actually, there was at least one set of comments that was like, we should do nothing. We should essentially rewild the whole area. But in general, the comments were, we want to see some kind of docks here. So alternatives 2, 3, and 4 leave some docks in place. Alternative 2 is with sort of, we take out what's there, we require it to be what's there to be removed. That's a question I'm going to come back to you with, Tom. Alternative 3, and then we put a dock in on behalf of the town. How we do that, how we fund that, we would have to figure that out. Alternative 3 is there are several docks that are in good condition, particularly good condition, along the shoreline. Perhaps we leave some of those in. The town assumes control, or I suppose technically has always controlled those, and utilizes those for public purposes. In those cases, we have to answer questions around what are the appropriate uses of these docks. And then alternative 4 is we essentially leave everything in place that's structurally sound. All of these run through a fundamental question. You can see alternative 2D, alternative 2E, alternative 4D, all ask a question about the appropriate uses. And one of the things I think, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, that we heard from town council is it may not be easy, but there's at least a pathway to license use of these docks. And we could at least consider that as an alternative. Is that fair, Tom?
That is fair.
Whether you like it or not, maybe is a different thing, but we could figure out how to do it.
Yep.
Okay. So what I'm going to do now is sort of stop. And commissioners, what I'd like to do here is, well, you know what I want to do is go through sort of all of these. Then we'll take public comment. The goal here, though, and what I want to hear from you all is not which alternatives do you necessarily support, but which alternatives can we scratch out? Which ones are we sure we're not going to do? So that's the docks alternative. The upland boat storage, we have sort of a related but different set of issues around upland boat storage. And that is that right now we've kind of got upland boats kind of all over the place. They're wherever people decided to drop them. We have a similar range of alternatives here. We could just say conservation controlled property, nobody's to store boats there. Somebody stores a boat there and they don't remove it quickly. I don't know. We have to figure out what to do with it, but we make it go away. We take some sort of enforcement action. We confiscate. I don't know what that would look like, but that's the most extreme. No boat storage. The most extreme on the other side is sort of a laissez-faire approach to boats. What I heard a couple of weeks ago was, they're a pain, but like, you know, people are using them. And the public comments around boat storage were also compelling in that one of the arguments there in the public comments was, this is a way for me who doesn't live right next to the lake to utilize the lake. So we've got alternative 1 of essentially we prohibit everything. Alternative 2, which is we designate a couple areas, but we don't provide boat storage racks. Alternative 3 is we designate a couple areas, but we provide those racks. And alternative 4 is let's just sort of police ourselves, ask neighbors to keep it orderly and see if we can get through that. Same general structure here. There are some threshold questions that we're going to need to answer. Probably the most important, and this is the same with the docks, is if we have conservation controlled space, that is a finite resource. How do we allocate that finite resource is a challenge. And I think one of the threshold issues that we've got to get our heads around if we're going to go with any of these alternatives for docks or upland boat storage. The other question, and Tom, I'll let you think on this and then we'll come back to it, is both for the docks and for upland boat storage is what kind of liability is the town assuming if we license or we allow boats to be stored? You know, I think it's one thing for us to say we're okay with it. It's a different thing for the town to unwittingly assume responsibility if somebody's boat gets stolen or damaged or something like that. So I'll come back to you, Tom, with some of these questions afterwards, but at least give you a moment to think about them. And then the last thing is the landscaping alternatives. And here, same general structure. Alternative 1 is we just rewild the whole thing. That I would say in the context of public comments was not well supported. Alternative 2 is we rewild select locations. So right now there are a number of places which are functionally lawn or otherwise cleared. Some of those maybe we allow to rewild and others we maintain as landscape spaces. Alternative 3 is we maintain the existing landscape spaces, but we don't add more. And then alternative 4 is we actually go a little further and we consider adding landscaped spaces. The threshold questions here are actually around things like invasive species and who's responsible. We know along the lake that there are pockets of invasive species. It's the same challenge that we have in lots of different areas. I do think one thing to consider here is that in the context of the public comment, we'll have to figure out a way to memorialize this. There was a lot of willingness from the public to help manage and maintain some of these resources. So one of the big issues around landscaping is invasive species. And then the other is, I think there's a fundamental difference, particularly in the sort of the ecological health of the lake, in that those spaces being essentially lawn, fertilizer, mowing, all of those things, versus let's say something more like a meadow or something like that. So if we wanted some of these spaces to remain open, we would need to answer questions around what does that mean? But I think those are things that once I get a sense from you of, hey, we really don't think we should rewild the whole lake shore. Okay, then I can axe alternative 1, or alternatively, maybe that's strongly supported and we need to go deeper on that. But what I'm looking for from the commission tonight are those issues. So with that, Tom, if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask you a couple questions, and let's go back to sort of the boats and the docks question and the liability concerns there. Is there a way we can reasonably manage those liabilities if we were to, say, allow people to store boats or to utilize the docks in a way that you could eventually get comfortable with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the way we manage liability is to get waivers, right? So if we're going to allow someone to do something on our land, we want to accompany that with a document that would say, what we're responsible for, and more importantly, what we're not responsible for. So that the liability part of it, I'm not concerned about. We can cover it with waivers, and we can cover it in certain instances with requiring that they provide a certificate of insurance to us so that we're protected that way.
And would that sort of vary, like boats might be just a waiver, like you're going to store your boat there. And if one of the questions that I think we have, if we have a dock, is if we were to license sort of, seasonal access to that dock, that might be something where we need something more intensive, like a COI.
Indeed. Yeah.
Okay. I think the other threshold legal question for you, Tom, is, because this is land controlled by the Conservation Commission, one of the things that we've got to get our head around is this is sort of if we were to do anything other than some of these alternative ones, right, we're essentially facilitating a certain amount of recreation here. And whether it's like sort of where the bounds are in terms of conservation land becoming recreation, and whether or not you think there's a legal pathway for docks on this land and a legal pathway for allowing, let's say, boat wrecks or something like that.
Yeah. So,
sorry, and I probably should have given you a chance to think about these questions ahead of time. You're just doing it on the fly. So.
No, it's more fun this way. So I think I like the idea, and I think this is actually a very good document. So I like the fact that you're laying it out, because what really helps us most is understanding what you want to do. And if you guys, this group can decide how you want to approach it, we would then like the opportunity to say, okay, now we understand what you want to do. Now let's kind of put all the legal arguments in place, because I don't want to get too prescriptive with concerns, because I might be thinking about it differently. It might be a kind of a bigger project than what you're thinking about. But in general, let's think about it in two ways, right? There's the pond and there's the dock in the pond, right? So we know that docks are allowed in ponds. It's just you just have to go through a process. And there's there's typically a Chapter 91 license, or in certain instances, we can go to DEP and ask that we be allowed to license the docks for Chapter 91 purposes on their behalf. That's a lot more work for you. So I want you to understand what you're signing up for, if that's what you sign up for it. So there's the Chapter 91 component, there's the wetlands component, but once that's done, it's okay to put a dock in the water. Where it gets more interesting is where the dock leaves the water and hits the land, because now it's your land. And this is where we get into the part where we can't lease it, right? Or if we do want to lease it, that's going to be a big process, because we're going to need, we cannot convey an interest in land of Article 97 land without the legislature's approval. So I think that's we don't want to go there. We can license the ability to do that, right?
Tom, to lawyers, that's a distinction without a difference, right?
Let them say that.
Okay. I hear the same thing when you say lease versus license.
Yeah. So so the key here is, right, so a lease it's an ownership interest that I control. I have a lease. I get to use it for this. And as long as I follow the rules of the lease, you cannot take it away from me. A license is different. A license is permission to do something with the understanding that the grantor, in this case, the Conservation Commission, can take away that permission at any time. So, so that's the key. I think we can figure out a way to license some of these structures, but the people need to understand, it's permission, but it's not permission with a time frame. We can, if we think you're misusing it or not using it the way we want you to use it, we can take away that permission. So I think that's the key.
Okay. That's actually really helpful. Last question for you, Tom, and this is specific to the docks, and that is responsibility for removing the structures that are in place. I will tell you that I think my instinct is I don't really want to go down a particularly litigious path, but our options are everywhere from the town do it on the easiest side to actually pursuing the parties that put the structures in place to be responsible for removing it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you imagine, someone puts a swing set in your backyard, right? It's your yard. You can remove it. It's when property is when someone installs or places property on your real estate, you always have the right to remove it. You don't give up those rights. You can also instruct them to do it, but you would be, in essence, granting them permission to come onto your land to remove their property.
Good. I think with that, thank you very much, Tom. I think with that, what I'd like to do is take public comment here. I've sort of left the docks alternative up. I'm going to put the upland.
Before we do public comments, I mean, that's assuming that the rest of us are all on board with everything you have on that paper.
Well, fair enough. Do you want to go the other way, Ed? We can go the other way.
Because I have serious concerns about your document, only having seen it a few minutes ago.
Sure.
And specifically, you're presuming that we will, in some fashion, provide either access to or the ability to have docks, access to or the ability to store boats, although I do see that your option 1 on boats does say no. And I don't think, well, for storage of boats, I think that no way. We should not. We've already said that, at least on one of the pieces of property we have. We already discussed that to some extent. But the docks, though, I mean, we're opening up a Pandora's box here that I don't think we want to be opening to license docks and say, okay, you can have a dock and you can't have a dock and so forth. The town already provides a boat ramp. The town already provides access to the lake. The lake is not strong. It's better since all the work was done on the septics and everything else to clean up a lot of the effluent that was going in, but and putting in the sewer and so forth. And I just don't. And I also appreciate that people have the docks, and I read the comments, and it was quite a mix between we've been here for N number of years, blah blah, and others have said, well, it seems unfair that they get to have one and we don't, or we shouldn't have them at all, and that kind of thing. My own feeling is having the docks is a convenience for a small amount of people. And no matter what anyone says, if I put a dock in, you're not likely to go use it because you're not going to perceive that it's your dock. And even if the town puts one in, I still feel like we're accepting a liability. No offense, Tom, but we're accepting a liability that I just don't think the town wants to have and can afford to have. So I get that my comments are all fairly negative, and I don't mean that to be the case, but I guess maybe
that's fine. And to be clear, alternative one is take all the docks out, right? Like that's very much, as far as docks are concerned, alternative one is take all the docks out. As far as upland boats are concerned, we're not going to allow storage on that property. And as far as landscaping, we're going to rewild it. It's essentially rip everything out. And I think that's very much on the table.
All right. Because when you were describing and discussing, I came away with a definite feeling that you were going.
No, sorry about that. The reason I spent more time on those is because they're more complicated. Rip all the docks out is pretty self-explanatory and straightforward.
Sure.
And then end of story.
All right. Well, then I apologize for misreading.
That's okay. I gave it to you all of an hour ago to read. So, so since we've gone down this pathway, what would be really helpful to me is I heard from Ed, at least as far as docks and boats are concerned, a lack of interest in facilitating those. What I'd like to hear from is the rest of the commission as far as where you would like us to go deeper. And as Tom indicated, sort of there's lots of details to work out on these, especially the ones that involve licensing and so on.
I think the thing that struck me, Chase, when you were talking about the boat storage is, we're either going to provide a finite resource, and only so many people will be able to participate, or it becomes an infinite resource, and it just feels like we're abandoning our mission in that case. How do we land on something fair in that regard? I know we talked about there's a parcel that we spoke some weeks ago about putting boat racks up, and we kind of explored that idea, and to me that seems like something that's sensible. Not trying to making the resource unlimited doesn't seem reasonable to me.
So in that case, Michael, you're saying you would want to provide broadly some boat storage racks, maybe at locations to be determined?
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. And I think a number of the comments were kind of around that. I don't want to have to drag my canoe 6 blocks or 3 blocks or 2, whatever, to get it to the water. But being able to leave your boat along the shoreline, regardless of where you live, or seems like it's just inviting an awful lot of traffic and clutter on the shoreline.
So you don't like alternative 4 here. You'd scratch alternative 4, just sort of put your boat where essentially alternative 4 is what we have now. People put their boats where they feel like. That seems reasonable.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let me ask this, just in terms of narrowing this down. Does anyone want alternative 4 in terms of boats?
I was going to second what Michael said. I would also remove alternative 4 from the boats and honestly from the landscaping one as well. It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, I would be against that.
Okay. Tell me what else I can knock off this list.
Do we want to be in the business of maintaining any landscaping?
Hate to break it to you, Ed, but we are.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of our purviews. That's exactly.
I mean, I
what
use
we're for.
landscaping here,
So,
but maybe
yeah, I agree. Just
resource
the wording isn't
management.
right? But I feel like we need to be better at managing this property, right? Like, or maintaining it, and that's part of the problem, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the whole lakefront should be rewild, honestly, because the lake is not in the best water quality condition to start with, and anything we can do to help improve that in shoreline restoration would certainly help. Get some get vegetation along there. I don't think we should have any spaces that aren't vegetated. Avoid the vegetation if we can do something about it.
Carl, does that mean to you, like, maybe we should define what rewild means there, like open spaces, open access to the lake, but maybe it's planted with wildflower grass? Or are you talking about allowing it to grow in whatever form it is, as long as we manage the invasives?
Yes. Number 2. I would but saying that, I would support some type of dock owned by the town, controlled by the town, for small boat use. I mean, I'm not talking about motorboats pulling up to it, but basically access for people to walk out, do some bird observation, wildlife observation, a place to maybe tie a kayak up to, but certainly not motorboat use. More things that people would do on conservation land. I guess I get when I'm thinking about this from a conservation land perspective. What would we typically allow?
So does that mean, Carl, you'd be okay with alternative 2 or 3, whether it's town owned or we sort of assume control, as long as we answer this question about how the docks are used in a way that you're comfortable with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Chase, can I chime in on Carl's, just in terms of landscaping? So I would be keen on finding a balance like we do at Frost Wickham, where there's certain times of the year that protects. You can cut once, and then have areas where we have like a vista, like where if you have certain sitting areas for that as well. So I'm in between finding that balance. I concur with Carl for the health and habitat. We need to revegetate, rewild some areas, but I'm happy to find a balance where we can, cut on occasion, which would help mitigate some of the invasives as well.
Okay.
So
but
that
definitely, right, we're
just
talking definitely strike alternative 4 here. Sounds like no one's in favor of going that far and opening up space. Okay.
Chase, you didn't factor in here anywhere the docks that, like, was it Park and Rec that did the dock last year, which I assume they'll do again for fishing and so forth?
That's right. This is talking about the currently unpermitted docks. You're right, Ed. There's the fishing dock, and then of course there's the recreational dock over by the lake.
I didn't count the recreation, where they swim out to in that. But the reason I brought it up is that would that alleviate some of the dock thing, because there would be a dock for fishing and presumably putting your canoe or kayak in the water.
So what I've heard so far is, as far as docks are concerned, maybe a willingness up to alternative 3 as long as uses are tightly controlled. Definitely not alternative 4.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
definitely not for.
As far as upland boat storage, definitely heard support for alternative 1, but also some version of alternative 3 where we provide some kind of storage space. But definitely not alternative 4.
I'd like to make sure that that's for town residents only as well, which is what you see in the majority of other municipalities.
Sure. Right. So if we did put some storage there, it would be, it's got to have a tag on it for, you
Right.
know.
You have to tag your boat, you have to license your boat, even if it's a kayak. They do that in many other towns and states as well.
I would be careful though, if it gets stolen and we're providing the storage space, we're now liable for it having been stolen.
No, I think.
Yeah, okay.
And then as far as landscaping goes, it sounds like, and I'm now very receptive to this idea that I probably shouldn't have used landscaping, but landscaping goes, definitely not alternative 4. And it sounds like even alternative 3 and sort of maintaining of the existing landscaping space as is probably not something we would support. Perhaps maintaining the openness of it with controlled management might be a subset of that, but something more wild, more natural would be the most
More like
extreme.
number 2.
Yeah, what
More
you
like
just
number 2.
described as number 2.
You can expand number 2, right?
Right. Yeah. Somewhere between those. Okay.
Yeah. If number 2 included stuff like put a bench out for people to sit and enjoy the water and stuff, I could probably get behind that.
Okay. Other comments on this before I open it up for public comment? Okay. What I'm going to do then is we're going to open it up for public comment. I would very much emphasize to folks 2 things here. We're not making a decision tonight in any capacity.
Yep. And so what we're going to do also is that you would just raise your hand, and when we go ahead and let you in, to please identify your first and your last name and where you reside. That would be great. And we'd like to limit it so that everyone can speak once. And as Chase mentioned earlier, ideally in that 3-minute realm, because we recognize these are lengthy discussions and we do have other hearings after this as well. So if anyone wants to raise their hand, I will try and see you as best I can. It's a big screen. Tim, you can help as well.
Shoot, guys, was I not showing this the whole time?
You were not.
You were not.
Oh, son of a gun.
It was very unclear if you meant to be or not, and I didn't.
Oh my goodness!
No one wanted to interrupt you. You were on a roll.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Sorry about that. You should have interrupted me.
Okay. Let's test. Let's see. Promote to panelist. Oh. Sorry. Tess, you should be able to speak. Sorry, I didn't mean to move you as a panelist. I just meant to let you be able to speak.
Can you hear me all?
Yes, go ahead.
Tess Deegan, Birch Road. I wanted to thank you so much for being so thoughtful around this topic. I think I hear the desire that you have to do right by the lake, by the lake shore, and also by the residents that live around it and that use it. I personally carry my boats or my paddleboard down and I carry it back up. I have no issues doing that. I find access points that are not docks, that I just walk towards the water edge, and I can easily do that. If I had a bigger boat, I might drive it around. We have a boat launch. I feel fully comfortable using it. So I don't know if I feel that I would need a structure there to store my boat. I think for me, the most important part is the lake. and its need, and that it is impaired, and that we need to do something different from what we have been doing in order to provide a future for it. I like the idea of rewilding the lakeshore, and I think mitigating the invasives is obvious for that. Bringing in native plants for it would be really important. And then the dock question, as I said, I personally do not need it. I see that some people do and feel like they would really like to have these docks. And I would caution then to see, does that improve, does that bring more traffic to the area? Will we have people parking on the sides, putting their docks out onto this now public dock, putting their boats out onto the public dock? So there's a bunch of questions still that need to be answered, but I really, really congratulate you for taking this up in such a respectful manner. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. I'm now going to go with Kathy, followed by Dustin. Go ahead, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy Ojawire, 33 Lakeshore Drive. I've lived at the lake since March of 1982, and I've seen the lake go through a lot of change, right? So this, my biggest concern is this discussion about rewilding or landscaping, or however you want to discuss it. If we let the little bit of land that people have maintained over all the years rewild, right, you won't even see the lake. And how is anyone going to enjoy a view if we don't continue to maintain those spaces? I live in what Lenny Adams, who was a trustee for many years, and his father before him, gave me a photograph of our house. It was the first house built on Long Lake, and it originally was owned by Mr. Smedback. And the gravel, quote, parking area that was across from 33 and 35 Lakeshore Drive was actually the boathouse for the house I live in. And it was graveled back then. So I think I get very upset about people wanting to control the wildlife around the lake. It disturbs me because there was something like 93 acres and 110 acres between the Prouty and the Whitcomb properties. I think less than 10% of the lake is actually mowed, like lawn area, as it was called. I know myself and my next door neighbors never use fertilizer or anything like that on the lake, not even on my own lawn. I would never do that. I think all of the septic systems around the lake add more nutrients than any fertilizer people might be using. I just find it disheartening that people have complained about those of us who had tried to make a beautiful view for people to enjoy. I lived on the road when it was a dirt road, and it was only 18 feet wide. We used to have horses come down. Everyone came down and walked the lake because it was a beautiful view, and it still is. And I think if we let it overgrow, and because what grows across in that strip is prickers and, all sorts of nasty things. And it kind of breaks my heart that this has become such a huge issue. I wouldn't mind taking my canoe and storing
Kathy,
it.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but your 3 minutes is up.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
No. You're great. Thanks.
Dustin, you're up next. If you want to introduce yourself, please.
Hi there. Thanks. You can hear me okay, right?
Yep.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Dustin Neal, 17 Lakeshore Drive. Just a couple of things. It sounds like there's actually been quite a bit of backtracking on the discussions that we've had the last couple of meetings, and that's a little bit concerning, particularly with regards to there's been lots of discussion about folks wanting there to be more public access, and I want to ensure that that hasn't backtracked at all, that anyone that has maintained a dock, I think, has been pretty open about ensuring that they would be publicly accessible if there was a good licensing option moving forward. And the issue between the docks and the upland boats are not distinct issues. And thank you, Chase, for sharing the screen. That helps a lot. Because if you allow upland boats, you're then inviting people to put in directly from the shoreline, which is not the most minimally invasive way to launch. That having a dock to launch from near those boats is actually really important. And if those were removed or even substantially reduced, and driving all of the traffic to the boat ramp will actually be the most disruptive options for how people access the water, because it will force everyone into single places and, squeeze in parking at the boat ramp, which isn't town property, by the way, it's state property, right? And it's not exactly convenient or easy to drag a kayak across the sand when it's a beach full of people on the heaviest usage months of the year. Plus, Park and Rec has been pretty kind of, aggressive about enforcing beach permits for people just walking across. But I know that's a Park and Rec issue, not for this one. And then just lastly, I'll say that if a licensing option is available to folks, I'd be very happy to kind of corral the existing dock maintainers to figure out what like a good amenable to both sides option would be, and make sure that everyone kind of can be on the same page about what works and doesn't work, and what people want to or able to sign up for, and obviously shared resources if there was like a need for certificates of insurance, like town council mentioned, stuff like that. I'd be happy to kind of lead the effort to work with the folks around the lake to figure out the best way to operate within a set of guidelines, and kind of come back to you guys, or rather work collaboratively with you guys as a liaison between the groups, so that it could be done with as little work on your part as necessary.
Thanks, Dustin. I will comment on what Dustin said there. One of the, I think, components of some of these alternatives that are embedded is to explore them and flesh them out more means working with, the Long Lake Neighborhood Association, or working with Dustin or something like that to get more details on how they are. I haven't done any of that yet because I wanted to see where we land in terms of alternatives that make sense versus ones that don't.
Okay, great. We're going to go Karen, then Molly. Go ahead.
Oops, sorry, I didn't realize I was in control of my volume this time. Kieran O'Dwyer, 33 Lakeshore Drive. Yep, thanks for hearing me. I just want to quickly, Kathy is my mom. I just kind of want to finish what she was saying. I think we're not opposed to moving the canoes across the street if we have to. That's not a big deal. I think most of our concern is around landscaping, and the picture that she references has a Model T in front of the house. I mean, so it has been maintained in some fashion by the people that lived here for over 100 years at this point. And the parking area, maybe this is I think it is activities 9 and 10 in front of 33 and 35 Lakeshore Drive. I want to point out also that we're not using any fertilizers. We're not even maintaining all the way down to the water. And kind of Dustin has mentioned his project last time about the ducks and the birds. This is also an area where the migratory birds can come up on the shore, which they have because we've had, ducks stay for the whole season before. And a lot of places they're not able to do that because the entire back half of the lake is just forest. I haven't really been able to review this document because we weren't able to see it. Chat is disabled, so we couldn't chime in and say that we couldn't see it. So I'm hoping that at some point before the commission makes a determination on this, that we can have an in-person meeting, or at least a meeting where there's more open participation, because I mean, Zoom is greatly convenient for a lot of things, but I think you do lose something, not being in person and having the access that we had before the pandemic. I also just want to hope I read all the comments, and I'm overwhelmingly seeing maybe 15 people are more in favor of less restrictive, and 4 people are, kind of leaning towards super restrictive approaches. And I'm just hoping that the commission kind of takes into consideration what the people that live here want, and not just what a select few loud people who are upset about certain aspects are. I mean, it is such a small area of land, given the size of the lake that is actually mowed, and it's just grass. If we let it overgrow with even return it to a meadow, people aren't going to be able to. You walk your dog in there, you're going to have to check them for ticks immediately. Kids aren't going to be able to get down there and fish. I just hope that the commission takes into consideration what the people that live here want.
Okay,
Thank you for
great. Thank you very much. Next up will be Molly.
Okay, I'm speaking through Molly's computer, but my name is Joan Wood and I live at 43 Lakeshore Drive.
Okay, Joan, we can barely hear you. Can you either speak louder or turn your mic up a little?
Okay, I'm speaking as loud as I can. Is that better? Are you able to hear me?
We can kind of hear you. Why don't you give it a go and we'll see what we get.
Yep.
Okay. Basically, I just want to thank everybody for weighing in. I think it's great that the commission is facilitating this community dialogue, and I've learned so much, and I really want to be sensitive to all my neighbors. So personally, I'm taking a lot of learning from this, but I want to support Dustin's proposal. I think it's an excellent idea for him to work with the people who have the docks currently, and we'll all be happy to collaborate with him to create the outcome that's going to serve the community best. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you. Anyone else? I know Emily, you had your hand up. Yep, Emily. Emily will be up next. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for having this public meeting. Lizzie, I want to reiterate Tessie's point and what I sent in my letter, that I think the land that the Conservation Commission controls should be, the focus should be the sustainability and the health of the lake and the lake area. I really want to emphasize that. The other thing that I would like to propose is, I'm hearing people mention that there's you're looking at number of people who are saying one thing versus the other. And if you really want to know what the Littleton residents thinks, I think you need to do a survey. The people who are living directly on the lake or across the street from the lake have a very vested interest and are very aware of this public meeting. And I think there's a lot more input that you can get if you are looking at as a number, number of people talking about, the number of people who are putting in comments or speaking at the public meeting. Thank you for holding this. I do appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for your input. Next will be Sebastian, followed by Rob, and then Sarah.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead. If you could introduce yourself, Sebastian.
Yes, Sebastian Klein, 2 Dogwood Road. Just wanted to bring up 2 points that came to mind as I was listening tonight, in addition to all that was said in the comments that everyone submitted. First one being more around the, a reality check, and no disrespect to the commission and anyone on this call. But I do believe that, and I'm mostly talking about people who may not be on this call or as worried about the issues at hand, or may not have cared for the lake and maintained the shoreline as most of the people on this call. But I do think that people want to enjoy the lake and will find ways to do that. They will find access points. So I'm very much for the idea of channeling this traffic, mostly through some either public or communal or private docks, because my concern would be that if we move everything, those people will still find their way and potentially damage what we've put in place. And I don't think it's feasible for anyone to be out there every weekend to police it. So I just think that that's likely what's going to happen, knowing that people will find their way to the lake. And then the second point is I am concerned to hear, thoughts about just letting it go, returning it to the wild. From my perspective, this part of the lake is not going to go back to nature, quote unquote, because we have paved roads. There are houses, there are delivery trucks, there's salt being spread in the winter, way too much in my mind. I live at the end of Dogwood, and if you go down there by the lake, it's mucky. There is a water outlet, I believe, because it never freezes over in the winter. It's full of weeds, there are invasives. I actually enjoy the parts that have been maintained by the community because they actually look and feel better to me. I think we have a responsibility to care for the shoreline, and that's sort of more active management in my mind, rather than just letting it go, because I am afraid that we'll see more dead trees that become a danger, more invasives. And I'm not an expert here, but I'm not sure I see the path forward of nature just taking it back and getting back to a place where it would be beneficial to the lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rob, you're up.
Okay, hi. I agree with Sebastian.
Rob, if you could introduce yourself with your address, that would be great.
Yep, sure. Rob Rounds, 25 Juniper Road. I agree with Sebastian's comments. I agree with Emily's comments pertaining to a survey. I think not stated here is this lakeshore probably being the most walked roadway. So I think this rewelding concept is contrary to that. So I think you've got to get a much broader perspective with regard to how the lake is utilized and appreciated. Other perspectives, I agree, Dustin's scenario, I think fine, good. But the one that you started off with, Chase, is problematic. Park and Rec is a big player on the lake. To not have them participate and be involved and consider such things as they have CPC funds, I think totaling 42 grand, with plans to put in a fishing dock at the intersection of Beach and Lakeshore. At least last time they publicly stated that's where it's going to go. They have another dock. So I think to not consider that solution or that coming element to this lake that's a shared lake is problematic. I previously wrote and think it's also problematic to not consider the property maintained by select board. And then an issue that I've spoken with you folks before, the CONSCOM's permission to allow off-season storage of the existing, what's commonly referred to as the sailing dock, and the space that takes up in that parking area, combined with the docks I just made reference to, possibly, which I've stated previously to you months ago, another potentially 2 sets of 42-foot extensions. The limited space beyond the 3 months that the docks are potentially in the water, at the time that you're considering removing all of the existing docks used by not permitted for motorboats, big problem. I don't think you have space to get all these potential people that you're separating from using the lake. I don't see how it all works. So all of that to basically summarize and say, while I understand you're just trying to deal with just this parcel, the lake has other parcels and other components of the town. And I think you have to gather them all. Certainly you have to gather them all if you're going to do a survey, because this limited perspective, I don't think is indicative of the lake and how we utilize it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Next is Sarah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Corey. I'm at 35 Lakeshore Drive. I just wanted to say thank you to Dustin for offering to kind of corral all of us. I am totally in favor of having that discussion and kind of coming together for those of us who have been able to maintain what we have, like Kathy and Kieran said, have maintained what has been kept up for decades now. One of the things I wanted to point out that I didn't mention in my comments that I had submitted is that while Lakeshore Drive is definitely a busy walking road, it's also a busy driving road. There's a lot of car traffic. Letting the lakeside rewild could mean that there is no place to step off the road when all of these cars are coming back and forth, when the middle school bus comes bombing down the hill off of Emerson onto Lakeshore Drive. We need a safe area for our kids to ride their bikes, for us to be able to walk. There's no sidewalks in this neighborhood. So you let it rewild, and then you have an even more dangerous walking area, which, like Rob said, is one of the most popular walking areas in the town. So we are happy to continue to maintain what we have, to allow for the view, to allow for safety, to allow for fun activities for these kids who are fishing and not getting into trouble. It's a beautiful neighborhood that needs to be kept up, and so we can support, this next generation coming up, while I raise my own kid, while I watch so many of our neighbors have the next generation of lake kids. Kieran was one of them, and now I get to raise one here, and I just really hope that the commission takes that into consideration, because what we have in this neighborhood and as a group is really awesome, and we are very much in support of maintaining what we have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to turn it back to you, Chase.
Sounds good. Yeah, it looks like we've gone through comments. So what I would propose we do, Sarah, is ask folks to this document with the alternatives will be posted. Commissioners, what I will do is pare this down a little bit and tighten these alternatives up. And then I would suggest, with your leave, it may make sense to check in with Dustin and probably with Tess in her capacity as the Long Lake Neighborhood Association president to maybe get some more details fleshed out on some of these alternatives, because some of them do, at least some that we're willing to contemplate, involve potentially a dock or some amount of landscaping or something like that. So try and tighten the alternatives that we didn't exclude up and come back in, I would say, probably 4 weeks' time with some more specific alternatives here, and then we can think about making a decision.
Okay, that's great, because we're actually following up. We've got others, so we're going to end this conversation, but we will discuss, it's coming up soon, is our dates for our next meetings. And so it will be posted probably 2 meetings from now when we're going to do that. So we're going to close.
Sarah, I saw Rob raised his hand. Rob, do you have just an administrative question? We're not going to take another comment, but.
Wait a minute, Rob, let me allow you to talk. Yep, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, just briefly, because Chase just mentioned Long Lake Neighborhood Association, there's been a flurry of opinions within LLNA members as to should discuss this issue, or I read it as should not discuss this issue. I just want to make you aware, Chase, that if you're going to be contacting LLNA, then LLNA has to present itself available for discussion in a way that is not being debated pretty strongly.
Okay, and I appreciate that, Rob. So we'll certainly take that into consideration. My request to Chase is that he does not reach out, so that we'll stay through this forum and keep open discussion so that there's no back channeling.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and move on. Pardon me?
Oh, I think Rob's just not muted.
Yep. Wait a minute. Okay. Let me just work on this or some. Hold on 1 second. Okay, great. Here we go. Okay, so Tom, thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to go ahead and carry on with some of our other hearings.
Okay, I'll talk to y'all soon. Thank you.
Great.
Appreciate it, Tom. I'll give you a call
Tom.
tomorrow. We can start to work on some details.
Thank you. Okay, it's now 9:39, and we're going to open the 8:35 to. Actually, before we do that, let's jump to the conservation, our meeting schedule, because that might help some people that are still on. Tim, can you kind of go over that with us?
I don't have it up in front of me right now. It was more so just if you guys see any problems with the dates, or if you don't see any problems with the dates.
Can you tell us what the next 2 dates are?
Yeah, so the next two dates should be December 2nd for the next meeting, and then the 16th for the following one.
Wait a minute, doesn't that say 15th?
This was the memo you sent out, Tim. I was just
Yep. So this doesn't cover the 2nd December date that we have for this year. This was for next year. Yeah.
So the next meeting is December 15th?
We have the 2nd and the
No,
16th
2nd.
on our agenda.
Yeah.
The 2nd and the 16th.
I thought, yeah. So are we going 2nd and then 15?
It looks like that's the submission deadline date for January 6th. And
Oh,
looking
gotcha,
at-
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is for next
So
year.
we're on the 16th, the 2nd and the 16th.
Okay, so Chase, would you want to have the next hearing on the 16th?
I think
no,
that makes sense.
Discussion for the 16th for the lake?
Mhm.
Okay, so those of you that are still on with us, let's go ahead and earmark that for the 16th. Okay, great. Okay, so now let's go ahead and officially open the 8:35 discussion, the conservation budget, FY 27. So Tim, we're gonna roll this over to you.
Sure. And this was part of this was just letting you guys know that, we've come up with our budget. If you guys want to meet, we can certainly meet with you and go over everything that we're requesting in it. Like I think we met with Kyle and maybe Ed last year. So if some of the commissioners want to do that, we're certainly able to do that with you guys.
So are there two commissioners that would like to help Tim kind of flush that out? We like to have two, can't have three.
Did it last
Jump right
year, so
What'd you say, Ed?
I did it last year. I certainly can do it again this year if that's.
Okay. Super. Is there someone that would like to join Ed and Tim on that?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Super. If you could, if there is a way to kind of have some conversations, and then Tim, would you come back for December 2nd with something a little bit more concrete that you could share with us?
I was going to share some of the stuff with you right now, but
Okay,
I mean,
perfect.
it wasn't
Yep.
going to be all of it, certainly.
Okay. That's great.
So rewind back to the spring when we were determining Lauren's position. There was some back and forth. Was it going to be 25 hours? Was it going to be 40 hours? And what we landed on was 40 hours, and that 15 hours was going to be funded by the water department, 25 by conservation. So what we've got in the budget for next fiscal year, what we're requesting is there's going to be a transition. We're going to be requesting 32 hours for Lauren under conservation, and then 8 is going to be water department. So nobody's caught off guard. That's what we're going to be requesting.
Tim, didn't you just say 15 hours water and 25 conservation? Where'd the 32 come?
So she's 25 conservation, 15 water right now, and then next fiscal year is gonna be the change in that. And so the understanding was that Lauren was going to, similar to what I was doing with the water department, helping with lake management issues. I was a little more involved with the Clean Lakes Committee when I was over there part-time. She's just generally helping out with some of the lake management stuff over there. And so following up on that, so we were asked, and this is kind of the big change within our budget ask for next fiscal year, is that we were asked to include some of the lake management items within our budget as separate line items, and take that responsibility away from the Clean Lakes Committee to have to go in front of the select board and do that themselves.
Just to sort of consolidate like the budget requests around environmental things under one umbrella, Tim?
Yeah, and so the water department funds almost everything with Spectacle Pond because they have the well there and they could justify it. the things that we're going to be requesting funds for are for Forge Pond and for Long Lake this year. And we're going to be requesting funds for lake management plans for both of them, and for herbicide treatments in the surveys that are involved with that. So they are the cost is pretty high for those, especially compared to what our previous budget we've requested has been. So just didn't want anybody to be caught off guard when they see a number or those things within our budget. We wanted to give you a heads up that they're going to be in there.
So they're consulting and contracting costs, though, not any marginal increase in labor responsibilities. Is that right?
Say that again, Chase.
The added budget, as the sort of Clean Lakes things fall under our broader umbrella, those costs are associated with contracts, external contracts, or external vendors. They're not additional internal labor, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And Tim, that money that was with water is coming over also. It's not that we're having our budget increased to do these things that water was doing. The money that was going to the things they were doing is moving with the items, correct?
Can you say that again, Ed? Sorry, I don't really follow.
We are picking up some responsibility for things that water department was doing. Do I have that correct?
Yes, Lauren.
Right. So the money that was budgeted for those items, that's also coming over with those items, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yep. Because we're going to be requesting it.
All right. Just wanted to make sure that wasn't a case of our budget was being raised and the money is staying with water.
No. Yep.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else you want to add, Tim? I think after you have a chance to go through that with Michael and Ed, that might help for the next meeting on December 2nd.
Yeah. No. I don't have anything to add right now, but yeah, we'll have it on the agenda for December 2nd. We can talk about it further.
I would like, as you guys think about budgets, to also think about, we always seem to move at the last minute with CPA applications. Andrew has been very patient with us, helping us make that happen. But as we think about the budget, it may be worthwhile to think about, are there any CPC funds that we may want to apply for? And maybe we could actually get that done a little earlier than previous years.
And I'm certainly, if anybody thinks of a project that they really see coming up, down the pipeline, if we can get it in earlier, the better. But we can work with what we have, if not. But yeah, if you have any projects in mind, feel free to bring them forward, and we'll try to make them happen.
Andrew, can you refresh our memory? Are there any certain timelines that we need to look as benchmarks for funding?
Yeah, so in order to get an application for consideration for the town meeting in the spring, I believe this time around, it's either late February or early March that we'll have to have the projects kind of in and approved by CPC. And that's, the two-part meeting, eligibility, one meeting, funding the next. Then it'd have to get placed on the warrant, select board, close the warrant, so as long as we get it in fairly early, that's an easier process. Otherwise, we're kind of rushing around trying to get it approved before the warrant closes. But we should have plenty of time for anything going into FY27. As long as we can get it in, let's shoot for maybe January to think of any proposals, get them in writing, and then.
So can we put that on as an administrative discussion on one of the next two meetings, Tim, when you see that there's an opportunity to have that? Or we might just put it on both to see if now that we start to talk about it and think about it a little bit more. So I would like to make the recommendation to put that on for the 2nd, and then perhaps if time permits to the 16th.
Sure. I will say I've been talking with Lauren, and we've been kind of brainstorming, and not just Lauren, honestly. We've been meeting with folks from LCT, Rick, Aaron, Elisa, Rob, And we've been talking about prioritizing properties to treat invasive species, and we have been talking about putting in an application in the spring for more invasive, terrestrial invasive work. And so that's something that's kind of on our radar, and we just hadn't brought it to you guys yet. But just want to let you know that that's something we've been talking about.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and keep the dialogue going. Okay. If you all want to just kind of look back, I know we've kind of jumped around a little bit tonight. I don't see anything else on the administrative discussions that we have. And I think we've followed through with all the appointed ones. So with that, it's 9:50. If there's no further discussions, if someone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, so we have a first and a second, Ed and Andrew.
Yep.
All right, roll call vote. Chase.
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Carl.
Al Melberg, aye.
Ed.
Ed Foltz.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Myself, aye. It is unanimous, and we're adjourned.